Dark woods, it's one of the most frightening places to find yourself in after dark. What's even more terrifying is when you hear unexplained echoes in those woods. As we are about to see in this video, they can be heard in many different situations. Let's look at some of them. They're meant to have birds tweeting and leaves rustling. It's part of what makes them so peaceful during the day. However, when night falls and the forest is cloaked in darkness, things do change. When someone walks through the trees, their footsteps will be louder because there isn't the ambient noise to drown them out. Their voices will also echo more. Even if they don't shout, the lack of daytime sounds makes it seem like their voices are booming through the trees. It's not uncommon to hear strange echoes coming from the woods, but most of the time it's just the wind or an animal. Sometimes, though, it could be something else. You can feel the spirits watching you from the shadows, waiting for you to make a move. And sometimes they try to communicate with you too. All of this can be very scary, but it's even scarier when you realize that you're not alone. If you're in a haunted house, then you can run away and lock the doors behind you. But what if you're in a haunted forest? Then you have nowhere to run. The spirits are everywhere. You can feel their presence all around you. After all, there are all sorts of creatures that live in the woods, and some of them can make pretty strange sounds. But what if the strange echoes aren't made by animals at all? You don't know what's out there, you don't know what's making the noise, and you don't know if it's dangerous. It's easy to let your imagination run wild when you're in this situation. There's no cell service and no one can hear you scream. That's why it's so scary to be there. You're completely alone and vulnerable, and if something does happen to you, no one will know. That's why it's important to never hike alone. Always go with a buddy. That way, if something does happen, they can help you. There was a dark secret hidden in the shadows, and they were determined to uncover it. But as they searched for the truth, they put themselves in danger. And they soon learned that some things are better left buried in the past. Or if you get separated, they'll be able to call for help. And before you know it, you're convinced that you're being stalked by a monster. The truth is, most of the time there's nothing to fear. You find a clearing and decide to make camp for the night. You build a small fire and sit down to wait for it to get dark. As the last rays of sunlight fade away, you hear a whisper in the darkness. At first, you think it's just the wind. But then you hear it again. Someone or something is whispering your name. You freeze, unsure of what to do. Should you run? Should you hide? What is the best course of action? You don't know. And as the whispers continue, you become increasingly frightened. You try to rationalize it away, telling yourself that it's just the wind. But deep down, you know there's something out there in the darkness watching you. The strange echoes are probably just made by animals or the wind, but that doesn't make them any less scary. What if they're made by something more sinister? Strange creatures are just another one of the things that might be hiding in the shadows of the dark woods. Some people say they've seen Bigfoot or other large, hairy creatures roaming the woods. Others say they've seen strange, glowing eyes peering at them from the trees. Whatever you do, don't look back. If you do, you might get a face full of teeth, and the only way out is through them. Many people who have hiked in haunted forests have claimed to experience strange things, like hearing footsteps behind them, even though they were alone. That's why urban explorers are always searching out haunted places to visit. They want to see for themselves if the stories are true. But sometimes the truth is even scarier than the stories. That's what happened to a group of urban explorers who decided to check out the woods. They had heard stories of strange things happening in the woods. People disappearing, strange creatures lurking in the shadows, and whispers in the darkness. Of course, they didn't believe any of it. They thought it was just a bunch of superstitious nonsense, but they were wrong. They soon realized that the woods were a dangerous place and they had to fight their way to survive. Or seeing apparitions of people or animals that vanished when they turned to look at them. mysterious forest. Forests are supposed to be quiet. Imagine hiking through the woods and suddenly coming across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing is a noose hanging from a tree. And if you look closely, you can see a skeleton dangling from it. Needless to say, you would probably turn tail and run. It's not exactly the kind of thing you want to see while you're hiking, but here's the thing. There are plenty of dark woods with dark histories, and some of those histories include things like hangings and even sacrifices. Those kinds of woods are best avoided. If you really want to hike in a dark wood with a dark history, make sure you bring a priest along. Unexplained echoes. Imagine you are walking through the dark woods and you hear your own voice echoing back at you. You stop dead in your tracks and listen intently. Then you hear it again, your voice echoing back at you. But you know you haven't said anything. Maybe it was a branch that made the sound, or maybe it was just the wind. When you enter a dark forest, you can never be quite sure what you'll come across. There are all sorts of secrets hidden away in the woods, things that are best left undisturbed. That's why it's so important to stick to the path and not go off exploring on your own. Of course, some people don't listen and they end up finding things that they shouldn't have. In some cases, these discoveries can be dangerous. That's because there are some things in this world that are better left unknown. For example, there are ancient ruins that have been sealed off for a reason, and yet some people still manage to find them. When this happens, they often regret it because they unleash something evil into the world. It's the same with crypts and cemeteries. There are some places where it's just not worth digging around in. The spirits that reside there do and want to be disturbed, and they LL do whatever it takes to protect their resting place. But what if neither of those things are true? What if your voice is literally echoing through the woods for no reason whatsoever? Some people claim to have had experiences where they heard their voices echoing back at them even though they didn't speak a word. This could be due to a phenomenon known as auditory hallucination. Auditory hallucinations are typically associated with schizophrenia and other mental disorders. They can also be caused by sleep deprivation, stress, and certain drugs. But sometimes there may be another explanation. Hidden secrets. There's always something lurking in the shadows. Haunting atmosphere. If you have ever spent any time in a haunted house, then you know how unsettling it can be. Dark past. Not all dark woods have a sinister past, but those that do are truly terrifying. Strange creatures. When you hear strange echoes in the dark woods, it's easy to assume that they're made by animals. Fear of the unknown. There's nothing more frightening than the unknown, and that's why it's so scary to hear strange echoes in the dark woods. Isolation and silence. The dark woods are a place of isolation and silence, whispers in the darkness. You're hiking through the woods and the sun is starting to set. Soon it will be too dark to continue. Search for the truth. Some people are never satisfied with just hearing the story. They want to experience it for themselves. In the end, they found out that there was more to the woods than met the eye. Agar Urdu main chahi ho to be bada deen.